Welcome to the Project Mom Podcast. I'm your host, Emily Gorrie, mom of a sweet baby girl and an ever-evolving entrepreneur. On this show, we will explore the intersection of motherhood and entrepreneurship. We will share stories of moms just like you and me with the goal of fostering community and comfort in knowing that we are not alone in our experiences. Please take a moment to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to ensure you get all the updated episodes and releases. Welcome to today's episode of the Project Mom Podcast. On today's episode, we are chatting with Sonia Dong. She is co-owner and managing director of Henka, a socially impactful clothing brand. She is currently a donor advisor to the Joanna Duong Chang Memorial Foundation, where 1% of all Henka sales are donated, which was established in memory of Henka's late founder, and it supports women and girls to reach their fullest potential. Sonia is a mom to 2 girls, and as a lifelong perfectionist, and now an ex-perfectionist, she has had a lot of trouble living up to her own expectations as a mom. She recently got the chance to share her personal story in her first co-authored book, Mama's Gotta Grow. So Sonia, thank you and welcome.
Thanks so much, Emily. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited and thrilled that you're wanting to participate in this project and share your story with us. And I don't necessarily start this way, or I haven't for the last handful of episodes that I've recorded, but I do want to start off our conversation with your business and learning a little bit more about Henka. And I want to start here because from what I've seen and what I've read, this clothing brand is not just clothing, right? It goes beyond that. It's really providing a way to take the pressure off for moms and for women as we're moving through different phases of our lives. It gives us some flexibility in sizing. It gives us flexibility to wear our clothes in a lot of different ways. Like as a mama, right, going through postpartum and even, I'm 18 months after my daughter's birth, I'm still finding that my body does not exist in the same way that it did. And I'm still learning to love it. So what I love about what I've read about Henka is the flexibility that it provides and the support it provides women as we're moving through different phases of our body. So with that, I would love to start with the brand. So if you could introduce us to it and talk to us a little bit about its mission, I would love to start there.
Sure, thanks. I'm honored to be able to talk about it here. Yeah, so Henka the name actually stems from a Japanese word, Henka, and Joanna, our late founder, had wanted to use this word because the word actually means everything changes. And, as moms and as women, we know as we move through life and our journeys, everything changes and everybody has a different journey in their life. So Henka wants to embrace this concept and to say, change is okay and it's great and we should celebrate it. And because our brand is also about celebrations and, capturing those moments and times that we want to remember. So the brand is all about size inclusive, flexible, versatile clothing that's comfortable and that makes you feel good so that you also look good on the outside, right? So when you feel good inside, you definitely will shine.
I love that.
Yeah, so the dresses are all convertible and size flexible. We fit up to size 24, so we're size inclusive. We have those extended sizings. They are size flexible too. You can't see this on the podcast, but if you take a look at any of my videos lately, I like to pull the waistband of the dress. You can see how stretchy it is. So it's kind of like, people are through the pandemic used to wearing sweatpants and like stretchy clothing, right? Well, this is a dress that provides you that opportunity and still be able to look polished and great when you go out. So it's comfortable. It's not something where, you need somebody to zip up for you. It's something you can you have in your closet before, during, and after pregnancy. I literally have almost nothing left from my closet from after having 2 children, right? So I don't know if you're in that same position.
Yes.
But even though, and you were saying too, our bodies might go back to a similar sizing, but it's just things don't fit the same way. It may go back, it may not go back. We have to go through this process and journey of loving our bodies. And Henka allows us to do that, right? And with these dresses, each one can be styled in over 10 different ways. So you can wear one dress to a wedding, and then you can wear it to a graduation, like your kid's graduation, or you can wear it to take it on vacation and all those sorts of things. So it's super flexible and accommodates wherever your journey takes you in life.
That's really incredible because I think there's, like you said, there's this evolution, right? You don't quite fit into the same clothes that you were wearing even after your second pregnancy, right? Like you tend to size down a bit from, you know, right after during your postpartum period, but things just sit a little bit different. The weight may be the same on the scale, but where it's held looks a little bit differently. And I think the journey of coming back to ourselves and loving ourselves through that physical change is a process, and it takes time and reminders. And honestly, I think just putting ourselves out there again to realize that we're our own biggest critic in that sometimes. And our kids don't care. They just want us to be a part of these experiences. They want to be able to see mom in photos 10, 15 years down the line. So reminding ourselves that we are perfect just as we are, but to find clothing that allows us to feel that good on the outside as we want to feel on the inside is really critical. So I have a lot of hope, and I'm getting a little bit of goosebumps just thinking about the brand. And I thank you, both of you, for really pushing this endeavor and starting this brand and growing it the way that you have. I love that it's that socially impactful. I do also think there's some eco-friendly piece to it too, right? Being able to wear this a handful of times, more sustainable for the planet, the materials that are used. Was that also a factor when Joanna and you started pursuing this project and this company?
Yeah, Joanna was, at the time, she was building her professional career, and she loved fashion, but she also grew up in a refugee family, coming to Canada. And so, she was also very frugal, but then at the same time, she's like, oh my gosh, I'm going to all these professional events. I'm going to all these weddings. I'm a bridesmaid in weddings. I'm also attending weddings. I'm traveling to trade shows and all these things. And I just have all these things in my closet that I can only wear once. And what's going to happen to them? And so, inherently, that's kind of that eco-friendly concept, right? But also just not wanting to waste, right? Not wanting to waste is like an eco-friendly concept. Now, I always talk about, that movie with Katherine Heigl called 27 Dresses, where she has a full closet of 27 dresses that she's been in bridesmaids, and none of them, they're all trash basically for her, right? So one of our dresses, our most popular one, you can style it in over 21 different ways. So it's like, instead of, if you can imagine your whole closet's full of 27 dresses versus one dress that you can wear over 20 different ways, you're already saving so much stress on yourself, but also helping save resources and time and everything, and, trash that's going into the garbage, right? So yeah, that's definitely something. And she actually wore her first dress to my wedding in 2009 as a guest. And she showed up, and it was like a one shoulder, she had styled it in a one shouldered purple dress. And somebody else at her table was also wearing a one shoulder purple dress. So normally we'd be like, oh my gosh, somebody's wearing the same thing as me. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
So, but she was like, hey, no problem. Be right back. Went to the washroom, changed it into a halter top style. And all these people saw her in the washroom like, wow, what did you just do? What is this magic that you just did? Can I get this dress? And that's how it kind of started. And then I always told her, like, if I had gotten married a few months later, then I wouldn't have had to go through that headache of trying to find something for my bridesmaids to wear that accommodated their different personalities, preferences, and how they want to look, right? Because a lot of bridal parties will wear dresses as well for their bridesmaids because, because of the size flexibility, you don't have to do the alterations. You also can wear it in the way that you like. Yeah. And actually, my background is prior to joining Henka and prior to having my first child, I was in the environmental nonprofit field for about 10 years. So when Joe asked me to join Henka, she was like, I know you get this. I know you get this eco-friendly thing about the dresses. And I also know because you're a mom now, you want something that's comfortable and size flexible and you still want to look pretty. So that's how I joined.
And it's always really special when you can join a business with a friend and kind of support her passion and bring to the table what experience you have. And so I really love that story and that growth. And so many things are coming to my mind because it's, as you're talking, it's like I've had so many of those similar experiences. It's my usual go-to for a wedding is black, because if I wear black and somebody else is wearing the same dress, we can probably blend in. It would be fine. So hearing that story of Joanna being able to be like, okay, I'm possibly a little bit uncomfortable, but I have a way out. I can fix it. I feel confident. Usually it's like, okay, I'll throw a shawl over and it'll look a little bit different. So take some of that pressure off of us too, as just being able to participate as a guest in some other celebration and kind of take the stress off of what we're wearing, which as women, and at least for me, is a huge part of it. So I love that. I want to talk a little bit about the foundation and the mission behind it and the goal of supporting women and girls as they move through life and ultimately hit their greatest potential. So can you walk us through the mission, how you support these girls, and what some of that work looks like?
Yeah. So, I mean, we started the foundation in 2020. So, unfortunately, Joe passed in 2019. And as a young woman, when she was growing up, she struggled too, as we all do, trying to find our way and how to reach our full potentials. And so we thought that the foundation would be a good way to remember her, but also to pay it forward to younger girls and to women. So with Henka in the past and currently as well, we usually do a lot of like product donations for prom, for women going into the workforce, those sorts of things. But then through the foundation, we're able to build an endowment fund basically, and so that it can be a perpetual fund that we can continue to grow over the years and give more and more. And so right now it's a little bit small because we just started it, but we were really happy. One of the things that we were able to do was to actually create a scholarship at the University of Waterloo for a student that's in a STEM program like science, technology, engineering, or math. And so it is for somebody in the math program, which Joe graduated from at the university. So that was the first thing that we were able to do because we wanted to do something for her alma mater. And then we've also been able to raise enough money to give to various other charities. So we've given to the Black Lives Matter movement, we've given to Indigenous groups as well. And then we continue to every year seek out communities and charities that we can provide donations to. The foundation that we created is in partnership, are housed with the Toronto Foundation here in Toronto. And they actually put out documents and resources for their donors so that we can see where the money might be best used for us to choose for donation.
Yeah. How amazing. I think the ability to support kind of along our own journeys too is so impactful. And in terms of, I know you said was just founded in 2020 and you're growing this. I mean, what is the hope for this? Is it to continue to grow the amount of, monetary donations that you can make to other organizations? Is it to create something that you can support directly through this foundation? What are the hopes and dreams for this foundation?
Yeah, I definitely want to be able to grow it so that we can support existing charities and groups that are doing really great work already. And then for us, my hope is that we can create some kind of like activities or events around body positivity that's linked to Henka, of course, because we are about body positivity. So body positivity and helping girls realize, what they can contribute to the world. So it's a little bit in very beginning phases of like brainstorming, but really want to be able to support their well-being and their ability to really provide their own self-care to themselves and resilience as they grow up. I have two daughters, so I see them going through the phases, right? So one is almost a tween. Well, she will be a tween this year. And then I have friends who have girls who are, going into high school. And you see those changes when we're going through the body changes and all of those things. And I remember when I was a kid, I was just like, I just am doing this, but I don't really have any support anywhere. I don't know what's happening to my body. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to do I want these clothes or those clothes, or like how can I deal with this? And you're uncomfortable and awkward. And so we want to do something where we can reach younger girls, but then move through those phases. And then, of course, if women are having kids and supporting them through that journey of those body changes as well, would be something that I would be really interested in doing.
Yeah, I love that. I think there's definitely a parallel between what we go through as adolescent young girls to the changes that we experience when we go through pregnancy and birth, postpartum, becoming a mom. So there's definitely a lot of parallels there. And I think you're right on with that. And the goals to support in all of those phases is so vital and will provide so much value. So I honor you for doing this. And just for those listening, if do you guys accept donations on the website? How can somebody donate some money to your cause and to your organization?
Yeah. So, I mean, if you are looking for something to wear and you need a dress, of course, you can go to henka.com, and 1% of our sales do go to the foundation. And then if you want to donate directly, it's at rememberjoe.com. And that's her foundation site. And you can learn more about Joe and her background and the events that we do and donate directly. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll make sure to link those too so they're easy access for anybody listening in the show notes. So let's dive into the motherhood piece of it for you. Where did motherhood play into your career timeline?
Yeah. So my first child was in 2011. And prior to that, I was working part time at an environmental nonprofit. And at that time, I had my child, and then I was kind of like, what do I do after this? And I didn't really consider staying home at the time because I was like, I want to continue with my career, or I want to see people who are my age or around my like adult, not just like be in front of my
Yes.
child all the
Yeah.
time. And I also wanted her to be, socialized in daycare. So that's when, a few months before I was ready to go back to work, that's when Joe approached me and said, do you want to like come work for me? And then I joined the team because I believed in the cause and the company, but also because it would be full-time work and I wanted my kid into daycare. And I was like, how are we going to support this? Because it's so expensive. So that's really how that happened. But then also, working in the small business and having some flexibility too, right? Able to pick up my kid when I needed to, or stay home and work if she was sick or something like that. So that's how it happened the first time around with my first kid.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so as you began the journey of working full time, Joanna, and you had put your first child in daycare, what did some of those narratives feel like for you? I mean, were there any days where you were like, was this the right move? Was this a good choice that I made? Or did you feel pretty confident through the entire time that this was kind of the best route for you as a individual and as a woman, and for you as a mom, and then also for the development of your child and the socialization? Was it always a confident decision for you, or were there any narratives that maybe had you second guess your choices?
Yeah, I mean, definitely some days I would think, oh my gosh, I'm not spending as much time as I should or want to
Yeah.
with my child. And,
Yeah.
sometimes I would take work home too, right? So then it's just like, oh my gosh, I'm working, but am I ignoring my child? Is it, those things came into play. And then also feeling like definitely being the last mom or parent to pick up my child from daycare, and they see that, like, they're just like, why are you the last one? Like every day, like, and it could be me or my husband, but we would always be the last ones. And so then you just kind of feel like you're letting your child down because you're not as attentive. So that definitely happened. And then just feeling like just super frazzled. Like I don't, I'm trying to juggle too many things, and just having that expectation that I needed to work and then I need to make money, but then also be able to clean the house and have food ready, and all those things came into play, and it was super stressful for sure.
Yeah. You mentioned this too, right? This like pattern of perfectionism. And I want to get into that, but I want to just jump back really quickly. You had said just now that there's this worry that you're letting your child down or you're disappointing them in some capacity. And I just want to highlight right now, I mean, now that your girls are older, right? This was a handful of years ago. Your oldest daughter's now almost a tween, which I'm sure time flies way too quickly, yet the days feel long, right? It's like knowing what you know now and reflecting on that experience when you first put your daughter into daycare. Would you say now that you let her down? Or was that a positive experience for her? Because I would argue that every one of us, including our children, are experiencing what they're meant to experience, and it helps them develop as who they're meant to be. So I just wonder, based on your reflection now, if you even find any level of validity in that concern that you had 10 years ago, 12 years
Yeah,
ago.
no, I don't think I let her down. It's definitely it has been a journey for me. Lots of reflections and journaling and all that stuff to get through all of that. But and it's that daycare is only one aspect of getting through that mindset, I guess you could say. But yeah, I don't think I let her down. I think she needed that, and I also needed that separation. Because in Canada we have a whole year. Now you can get up to 18 months of maternity leave, but at the time, a year. And so I had a year with her. And yeah, I think I needed a bit of separation so that we could both find ourselves.
Yeah. I would probably even feel strongly about saying that you definitely didn't let her down, right? This was the experience that needed to happen for everyone. And I had just recorded an episode that it's coming out this Monday on June 27th, where the woman that I spoke with is a firm believer in that pursuing her ambition is for her children, in support of her children, to be the best role model, inspiration for them, essentially. So there's a really nice reframing to that I think a lot of us could benefit from reflection on, in terms of how do we best support ourselves in order to help our children develop and go along their own journey and not necessarily protect them from everything. Obviously, safety is something they should be protected, but if it's an experience, how can we help them through it versus keeping them from it? Which is, I think, ultimately a reflection everybody should think on. So I appreciate your vulnerability around that. So I want to talk a little bit about this perfectionism, because I think a lot of us, I'm a first time mom. My daughter's almost 18 months old. And while I would not deem myself as a perfectionist or even type A, and I bet you some of my friends listening to this are going to laugh at that because I'm extremely type A, but I refuse to categorize myself as that. There's a lot of these narratives at play of having to do it all, being a disappointment, or the expectation that, asking for help is weak, or frustrations along those lines. And then basically self-sacrificing ourselves in order to appease these expectations that we think others have of us. So could you give us just a little bit of insight into what this perfectionist journey looked like for you? What fears were present for you? And we touched on them a little bit, but also, what expectations did you have of yourself as you were a mom? And perhaps it was in that first year of your daughter's life that you were with her, but also as they evolved as you went back to work.
Yeah. I mean, my perfectionist journey, I think when I reflect back on it, it really started when I was younger. And I always say, your parents only do what they can, right? What they know. And, my parents were immigrants as well. And they were just trying to put food on the table, and single income family with 3 kids. And, they didn't really have a lot of higher education. My mom had to drop out of school because she didn't have parents when she was younger, and so that she could take care of her siblings and put them through school. And then my dad was able to go to college when he got to Canada and, get a job and all that stuff. But they really wanted us to go through school and go to university. And they were very focused on, getting good grades and not failing. And you got 98%, whereas the other 2%. So you kind of, when you have kids, you're just like, what am I saying to my kids that's going to get ingrained into their minds? And so sometimes you don't really know, right? And then when you grow up, that's when you have to kind of deal with it, right? So So yeah, so that was kind of ingrained in me when I was younger, and to like not fail. And so the opposite of not failing is to try to be perfect. And so then there's two things, you beat yourself up mentally and have this voice in your head saying you suck when you don't do something the way you think that it's supposed to be done. And then the other side of that is you don't even try because you don't want to fail, because you might not get it perfect. And so how that manifested with my children was when I was actually pregnant with my first daughter, it was extremely uncomfortable. I just had the worst pregnancy. I felt horrible the whole time. But then you see all these other moms and you're just like, they're just so happy and they're having a great time and they don't have any health issues. And then I was just like, this is not the perfect pregnancy that I thought I was going to have. And then labor was super, like, just so uncomfortable. And so just after having my first child, I was like, I don't know if I can have another one because I just don't want to go through that again. And then I felt bad about feeling like I didn't want more children, or like that I was, putting this on my child.
Yeah, the
That
cycle.
cycle. And then my child wasn't a good sleeper. And I read all these books and I was like, everybody told me this book would work and it's not working. And, all of those things were compounding into my perfectionism. Like, why am I failing at this mom thing? And yeah, it was just, I went through this really bad spiral when she was about 8 or 9 months, because at that point I was like, not, I think I just hadn't gotten very good sleep for not just that 9 months, but also the 9 months prior when I was pregnant.
Yeah.
So I was just like, this is not fun at all for me right now. And then you feel guilty, you feel the mom guilt and the mom shame. Then you get to work and you're like, my brain, I still have a bit of like brain fog and I'm not thinking the same way that I used to. And so then I was like, okay, well, I'm not doing my work at peak performance either. So there's all of that going on.
I just want to interrupt really quickly because I really resonate with this journey that you've had. I think there's this really unfair expectation that pregnancy is this glowing journey and experience. And we see it flashed across, TV screens and movies and all these fairy tales. And I did not have a whole lot of friends who have had kids before I did. I have some, acquaintances, but we weren't on the level where it could be like, this is reality for some other women. And it wasn't shared with me. So I really resonate with your experience of why isn't this happening the way that I expect it to happen? I didn't feel physically all that great. I didn't sleep probably the last 5 months of my pregnancy either. So you're going into this already sleep deprived in some sense. And then, yeah, you kind of beat yourself up on why isn't this working? I've been promised that the sleep training method is going to work, that my kid should not be so hard to soothe at 6 p.m. every night. Why is she crying? And searching for all of these solutions to no avail really compounds this belief that you're doing something wrong. For me, that was a big thing as well. So that this really resonates with me. So I appreciate you sharing that. And I'm sure it will for others. How did you support yourself through that? I mean, there's at some point where you said 8 or 9 months, your daughter wasn't really sleeping. You've kind of hit this spiral. What did next steps for you look like? What did that awareness piece look like? How did you support yourself in the initial moment?
Yeah, with that, I really hit a wall. And throughout all of this, my husband was like, if you need me to take the kid, and he's supportive in that way, where he was like, I'll take the kid, I'll take the child, or we can ask the grandparents. And, luckily I do have family who can help support us. But then at the same time, I was like, I felt like I was failing if I asked them, and and then now when I look back at it, I'm just like, why wouldn't I have asked them? Like, they totally are willing to help. And I'm very lucky and very grateful and privileged to be able to say that I have that support, because I know a lot of moms don't have that support, right? But at the time, we did go see the pediatrician, and she was like, you know what, you just need to start pumping and giving the milk to your husband, and he has to feed the child at night, and you have to sleep in a completely separate room, wear headphones want to go to sleep so you don't hear her crying, all of that stuff. She's like, go and do that so you can get sleep. And then I also saw my doctor. I did an assessment for postpartum depression. I was very near the edge of it. So she was like, these are some things you want to do. We can like go on medication, or you can try these other methods, go outside from our walks, get your omega-3s, do your self-care, and if you do those things and you feel like it's improving, then I don't think you will need medication. But if you do and you want it, it's always here. So that was something that I did do. I didn't end up going on medication, but I have friends who had postpartum depression and went on medication too, and it really helped them. So everybody has a different situation, but that did help me, and it really started me thinking more about, well, what is this self-care thing anyway? Like what are you even talking about? Like, oh, I'm supposed to like have time for myself? Like what?
What a foreign concept.
Was very strange to me, because even, yeah. So it's just, and getting over that mom guilt of taking that time for yourself. And, going back to what you said about the podcast that's coming out on Monday, it's so true that you want to show your kids how you take care of yourself, because you want them to learn how to take care of themselves and also go for their dreams. If they want to work and if they want to build a career, how do they do that? But then also, how do they take care of themselves and do their own self-care? And how do they learn? They learn that from you, right? So it's really important.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. I think there's so much to be said about like taking care of ourselves first and finding a way to support ourselves to do that. Because if you think about, so the first 8-9 months of your daughter's life, right, you were sacrificing for her, right? Night feeds, soothing her, being there for her, supporting her as newborns need, right? This is how our babies thrive in the world. But there's a level of self-sacrifice for those first handful of months. And when I noticed for myself, there was a lack of trust in myself at that point of what do I actually need? I couldn't quite put my finger on what it was. So taking the step to just say, I need to speak to somebody else who can help me figure out what those next steps are and to begin to retrust myself in terms of what I need is huge. So seeking out the pediatrician and seeking out your own doctor to evaluate where you are is so critical. So I do really appreciate you highlighting that, because I think a lot of us don't do that. I didn't do that, to be honest with. Like, I spent the first year in a fog, accepting that this is where I was going to be. This was it. This is it. I have to accept it. Everybody else has accepted it before me. It's my turn. And then I hit like almost to the day, a year, and I came out of this fog and I was like, wait, no, I don't have to do that. And I started to seek some other ways to expand my horizons a little bit to see what is possible. So it's super crucial for us to be able to do that. And one more thing I just want to say, it's coming to mind to share, is like something that somebody said to me was, if we think about the impact that we want to have on our children, right? You highlighted it of like, I want to be the role model that my kids see to learn the behaviors of taking care of themselves, to go for their dreams, to prioritize their ambition. And I want them to learn that from me and see that from me. Is it also possible that the experience that these kids are having with other people is also critical? They're experiencing more love from people outside of their immediate circle. Like, could it only be beneficial? And this is something that has been said to me a handful of times, because I've explored hiring a nanny for a couple hours a day. It's like, could it be wonderful for your daughter to have one more person that loves her? Yeah. Right? Could it be that simple? Could it be that simple? So when you think about it in very simplistic terms, it feels quite easy. But it takes a point of opening and expanding, and that comes from talking to other people and hearing other people's stories. So I thank you for sharing that. I want to dive in a little bit to how you support your girls. So you had mentioned, right, wanting to be that role model, seeing them go through this period of growth, right, throughout their childhood. Your oldest is becoming a tween soon. She's going to be entering, right, this next phase of life ultimately. How do you support your girls or want to support your girls through this narrative of everything being thrown at them, like societal expectations? Like, how do you support them?
Yeah. I mean, it goes back a little bit to the perfectionist story and, also seeing them when they were little being like, oh, I don't want to do that because, what will that person think? Or I'm not good at that. Or them saying, like, I don't want to try doing that, or drawing something and then scratching it out because it's not perfect the way they wanted to draw it. And so whenever that happens, it's just like it's kind of like a trigger to me. Like, how am I dealing with my perfectionism and being an ex-perfectionist and trying to embody that? But then how do I pass that on to them? And so in the book that I co-authored, I was talking about the journey that I went on to kind of overcome this perfectionist pattern was to start being grateful and have a gratitude practice for myself. And so, writing down gratitudes, like 3 or 5 things I'm grateful for each day, and focusing on those things rather than focusing on that one thing that didn't go perfectly. And also thinking about, if it didn't go well, then what did I learn from it? So trying to support my kids in that way as well. So we do that, and we started doing that, at nighttime. We don't do it all the time right now, but sometimes we'll say, what did you like the most about today? Or what are you grateful for? And sometimes they say the exact same thing like every single day, but that's okay. They're learning. And then sometimes we say, okay, what didn't work out? And, what's happening with it? How are you feeling? And how can we work through this to learn? And the other day, actually, we have a family game night and we play this game called Bananagrams. It's kind of like Scrabble, but you're like,
I love bananagrams.
so my husband is like, he plays like a Scrabble game on Words with Friends all the time on his phone. So he knows all the words and the things, and he's really good at it. And so my youngest daughter, who's 8, she's like, "Why do you keep picking bananagrams, mommy? Like, we never win. None of us win. Daddy always wins." And I was like, well, we want to improve, right? We want to get better. And if we want to get better, that's how we can do it. And daddy's trying us. And he's not rubbing it in. Like we try to say, don't rub it in. but
Yeah.
but how can we learn from that? And my eldest daughter actually said, she was like, if we don't fail a lot, we can't succeed. And I was just like, I'm gonna cry right now. This is such a proud mommy moment that she has ingrained this concept into her life at a young age, because it's still taking me time to figure that out, right? Like I still have challenges like of doing things because I don't want to fail. But she's starting early, and I'm really proud of that and proud of how we've been able to help her through that process and to learn that.
Yeah. That's beautiful. That's really beautiful to hear that reflection. And I can imagine it probably opens your eyes a little bit too, and it ingrains it back in you, right? It reminds you that how do we truly succeed if we don't learn, if we don't give ourselves opportunities to make different choices, or I don't want to say make mistakes, but have opportunities to make a different choice, to learn to trust ourselves and ultimately follow a path that most aligns for us. So that's really beautiful. I love hearing that. I love hearing that. We are huge Bananagram fans over here as well. We always play with my sister and my brother-in-law and my parents, and we have a similar dynamic. Some of us tend to win more. I'm not saying that would be me. Sometimes that would be me. It tends to be a really fun quarrel. Is that really a word? I don't know. I don't think that's a word. Pull out the dictionary. So we get pretty competitive in it. But I love the family dynamic and the game night and the camaraderie that you bring to the table with that. I love that. So in terms of, just quickly, I want to touch on this like kind of dueling narrative a bit of being a working mom and having your girls, albeit now a little bit older. How do you balance the two? What works for you? What perhaps you've tried and hasn't worked for you in terms of balancing both of these identities for yourself?
Yeah, things that haven't worked are me not setting boundaries, proper boundaries, when they're at home. And, the pandemic has created all sorts of different dynamics, obviously, because they were both my husband and I have been working from home. And then when they didn't have school, like in person school, they were at home. And then what hasn't worked is when I really try to like grind it out and be like, I need to do all this stuff for work and you guys are bothering me. And like, so then everybody's getting worked up. And so then me pulling back a little and saying, what's my priority here? Like, and my priority is making sure that they're good, but then also reorganizing my time a little and thinking, how can I reorganize my time so I can actually do my work at certain times without interruption or with an understanding between us. This is mommy's work time and this is your, whatever we want to say they're doing. It's their reading time. It's their, you can watch TV at this time. And then another time it's like, okay, this is the times that I can help you with school. Creating those a little bit more structure for us has really helped, and creating those boundaries as well. And me voicing those boundaries. So that's something that I've struggled with, is also me voicing those boundaries. And also what you mentioned at the beginning, asking for help, right? And just being more comfortable asking for help, because you know what? When I ask them for help, they actually do help. And I was just like, can you help mommy by being quiet right now? Just like very simple things like that. Or like sometimes in the morning, I'm like, tomorrow morning, mommy needs to really do something. So can you got like the older one is old enough to like make a sandwich, obviously now, right? So just like, can you guys help make lunch for yourselves today and do it? And it's just like, wow, they actually have the ability to do more than you think sometimes. And for us as moms and parents to have faith that they'll be able to pull through. And sometimes obviously they don't, and they're human too. So I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, so that has really helped. And also asking my husband for help, being comfortable with that and saying, and not having that thing where I'm just like passive aggressive and I'm like, I think he should know that I need him to take out the garbage, but just be like, hey, can you take out the garbage? Thanks for taking the garbage, and just being grateful for that, right? Just turning that around, and you feel so much better in your body when you do that versus holding it in and being like, oh my gosh, the garbage hasn't been taken out. Just a simple example, but something.
Yeah. I think that is so impactful, right? If you can attempt to change the mindset and recognize that by being passive aggressive or expecting somebody else to know what it is that you expect of them without having communicated it to them is pretty unfair personally, right? To our own selves. It's like, why are we self-sacrificing so much in order to prove what? Certain expectations or whatnot, right? How can we just be our own biggest advocate and ask for the help that we are worthy of getting and see who can step up in those moments to support us? And it may not always be as simple, right? To your point of maybe it won't be delivered as you had hoped it would, or it wouldn't quite show itself as ideally it would, right? In an ideal situation, but it's okay to keep asking, right? And eventually, right, they'll learn to make a sandwich without leaving all of
Yes.
the rest of the food
Yeah.
all over the counter, or, that you would then have to clean up
There's
after.
a big mess after sometimes, but like they did the thing that I asked them to do. And yeah, like I really think that sometimes kids are like they reflect back the things that you sometimes want to avoid in yourself, or that you are most triggered by. So that part about like asking for help and voicing your needs, that's been a challenge for me. And then so I see that in my children sometimes, because they'll just all of a sudden be upset at something, or like, how come you didn't do this? And I'm like, I'm not sure if you actually asked me, or did you, and this happens with my older daughter the most. And she'll be like, but I thought I told you. And then we're like, no, we didn't say anything. But like, oh yeah, I said it in my mind, but I didn't say it out loud. And it's the same thing with me, like that part of things, and I see her sometimes when she's doing a school project or something, and she's like, "Ah, it's not going the way," and then she gets super upset, like just like I see her body and her mood change, and I'm like, that's totally me. She's me.
Yeah. Yeah. So Funny how that happens, right? I mean, but also a blessing, right? To then be able to have the awareness to reflect on it, for you, but also to hopefully help ease her and move her through those moments and give her some tools to support herself through that as she gets older and starts to move through life a little bit more independently. The opportunity is really quite beautiful to do that. So how do you, just lastly, because I am very curious, so in those moments that you see this happening and it reflects it back onto you, how do you reflect on that for yourself? Like, what does that individual support look like?
So, I mean, I have to say that sometimes in the moment, I'm not very good at reflecting. I just like also blow up and we have a giant argument
We're
fight
human.
kind of
Yep.
thing. We both get super upset. And then afterwards, it's like, oh, shoot. Like, I feel really bad that I yelled at her for doing this thing, for her getting upset. So, how could I support her? So then it comes back to us or me having a little bit of time to just be away from the situation and then reflect on it. I do a lot of journaling. So, and it's like stream of consciousness journaling when in the mornings, I just do like a stream of consciousness kind of journaling so that I could get everything out of my head. But then when some of these situations happen, what really helps me is to like just talk about the situation, like write it down and say, okay, well, what happened? What am I feeling right now? Like at first, it's just like, okay, what is the raw reaction? And then dealing with it, right? Because you kind of have to. I used to not understand this whole concept of like moving through your emotions and moving through the situation. I'm like, I don't understand what that means at all. Like, and then now I'm just like, oh, okay, I know what that means. I need to like get it out somewhere. And my method is to get it out on paper. And I don't look at it afterwards or anything. It's just like out there. And then I can say, okay, what can I do to move forward? And, what is the situation? How could I have reacted differently? What do I need to say to my daughter now to debrief between the two of us and to work it out? So that's what it looks like.
Yeah, I love that. I think there's definitely something to be said for reflecting for ourselves in order to then support our children in helping them move through their feelings and giving them those tools. So thank you for sharing that with us and walking us through that. I think just getting it out of our minds and somewhere else, whether it's on paper or we, talk to somebody about it, really helps release some of that pressure and takes off some of the pressure of beating ourselves up on, oh, why did I do that? Because we're human. It's going to happen maybe more often than we would like, but hopefully as we start to reflect, it happens less often and we can forgive ourselves when it does, because it will.
Yeah. Like I think the self-compassion is really, really important as a parent to like forgive ourselves and to know that it happens to everybody and we're not perfect. So we're not going to act it perfectly every time. And the kids aren't going to act perfectly and we can have compassion for ourselves and for them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a beautiful note to end on. I'd love to wrap this up. Before we do, I would love just for you to give us just a quick overview of where our listeners can find you, whether that's social media, your website, any personal pages that you participate on. Where can they find you?
Yeah, so for the company, they can find us on henka.com. Instagram is also henka, Henkaa. That's how you spell it. And my Instagram is Sonia Dong, SoniaDong. And my Instagram is more focused on trying to have less stress and more joy and, being kind to people and planet. And so that's what I kind of focus on mine. So if you want to, and sometimes we do dances and random fun stuff.
Amazing.
So that's where I am, just trying to make momhood, less stressful.
I love that. We're all here for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. And then you can also find me on LinkedIn at Sonia Dong also.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Sonia. I really appreciate you being here and chatting with me and sharing a glimpse into this journey for you.
Thanks so much, Emily.
You're welcome. So for those of you listening, as we are wrapping up, if you want to learn more about Sonia and or Henka, her brand, check out all of those amazing social media pages or her website. We'll have them linked in our show notes below. Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. If you liked what you heard, please help us out and leave a review wherever you listen, and consider sharing with your friends. If you're interested in learning a bit more about the project or want to share your story, please visit our website linked in our show notes below.